and welcome to Women and Feminism. My name is Sarah Peterson, and I will be discussing with you a brief history of women's relationship with feminism during the 20th century. Take a look at the strides women have made in gender equality and how women's rights have changed over the last century. We ask that you take a critical look at your own views as you learn about empowered women. Please enjoy. The word feminism used all the time, whether it is in the media or on the internet or thrown into conversation. But do you know what that word actually means? Feminism is defined as the advocacy of women's rights on the grounds of political, social, and economic equality to men. It is widely accepted that there are three separate movements within the American feminist movement. The first wave started in 1848 with the Seneca Falls Convention. This wave focused primarily on gaining the right to vote for women and general suffrage for all. They obtained this goal in 1920 with the ratification of the 19th Amendment. The second wave of feminism started in the early 1960s. During this time, Betty Friedan wrote The Feminine Mystique. Women during this time primarily focused on gaining equality in the workforce with the Equal Pay Act of 1963 and reproductive rights, such as gaining the right for married couples to use birth control and legalizing abortion. The major failure of the second wave movement was the Equal Rights Amendment, which, had it been ratified, made gender discrimination illegal in its entirety. A third wave started up in the 1990s, and it is arguably the least political of the three movements. This movement focuses on reclaiming the female identity and redefining perception of women in traditional gender roles, society, and sexuality. We are now going to take a closer look at these three movements and how they advanced women's rights. Most scholars agree that the official start of the American feminist movement happened at the Seneca Falls Convention in July 1848. The idea for the convention started with Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton 8 years earlier. They were attending the world's anti-slavery convention in London with their husbands and were denied the right to speak at the meetings and segregated with other women. Later, Stanton and Mott had conversations about holding a mass conference addressing the rights of women. At this meeting, with over 300 in attendance, they passed the Declaration of Sentiments, an 11-article document outlining various rights women hoped to gain, including the right to vote. This article, oddly enough, was the hardest to pass and had the most opposition. It wasn't until Frederick Douglass spoke on behalf of it that the article passed at the convention. Fast forward to 1887, and only a few states had allowed women the right to vote in public matters. There was still a long road ahead for suffragettes, but with the merge of the two largest women's organizations in 1890, the NWSA and the AWSA, this goal seemed more attainable. 30 years after this, women would gain the right to vote on August 26, 1920, with the ratification of the 19th Amendment. On the 75th anniversary of the first Seneca Falls Convention, women's rights activist Alice Paul proposed a new amendment for gender equality to the Constitution. She dubbed it the Lucretia Mott Amendment, which originally read, "Men and women shall have equal rights throughout the United States and every place subject to its jurisdiction." In the 1940s, both the Republican and Democratic parties added their support to the Equal Rights Amendment, and in 1943, Alice Paul reworded to reflect the 15th and 19th Amendments, respectively. However, the labor movement, which had worked hard to create differences for men and women in the workplace, was worried that this would wipe out all of the progress they had made. Despite the opposition it faced, the ERA passed in both the Senate and the House of Representatives on March 22, 1972, largely because of the huge collective of women's voices that advocated for it. After this, it was sent to the states for ratification with a 7-year deadline that had been placed on every amendment since the 18th, with the exception of the 19th Amendment. The potential 27th Amendment gained ratification in 22 of the 38 states in the first year. After that, the pace slowed considerably, with 8 ratifications in 1973, 3 in 1974, and 1 in 1975, and none in 1976. Opposition from anti-ERA organizations that played on the same fears as the anti-suffrage movement did gained a large amount of traction. The Republican Party also formally withdrew its support in 1980. In the end, the National Organization for Women were only able to obtain one more stable state to ratify the amendment, Indiana in 1977. By 1982, the year of the deadline, after the extension, only 35 states passed the amendment, 3 states short of what was needed. It is hard to pinpoint the exact start of the third wave of feminism in the United States, but it is widely believed to have started in the 1990s as a response to the failures and repercussions that the second wave movement had. While the second wave focused more on institutional gains for women, the third wave hoped to redefine gender stereotypes and seek social equality relating to race and LGBTQ issues. This movement has no large singular issue that it focuses on, but allows for the most fluidity in feminist beliefs. There are a few prominent issues within the movement, however, widely debated they are, like gender violence, reproductive rights, reclaiming derogatory terms, rape, care for single mothers, race issues, and freedom of sexual expression. Women in this movement hope to continue to pass laws that help to protect women from domestic abuse and sexual assault. One prominent activist in this movement is Law & Order SVU star Mariska Hargitay. She has created several anti-rape and domestic violence organizations, including the Joyful Heart Foundation and the No More campaign. She has gone and spoken to several state and national legislatures to advocate for laws that protect women. In 2014, she even spoke in Detroit to discuss the importance of testing all rape kits right away and how they can yield closure for the victims. Another movement that hopes to help victims of abuse and reclaim a derogatory word is the Slut Walk movement. This movement aims to discourage slut shaming and victim blaming with the female and larger community. They believe that by using the word slut in a more positive way, they can reclaim and appropriate the word to mean something else. This new age of feminism has sought to include race issues and LGBTQ issues, including marriage equality. Many women believe that the next step to equality is fighting for LGBTQ rights. As women, we constantly have to deal with issues men would never be asked to deal with. Women are taught to be careful when out at bars or walking alone at night for fear of sexual assault. They understand that equality in the workplace is not a right and that they potentially still face large amounts of sexism. We only make 75 cents to every dollar a man makes for the same work. Women have to deal with being slut-shamed and scrutinized for how they dress. When we react to something with a lot of emotion, we are labeled the crazy chick, even if our emotional response is completely justified. The treatment of women still received today is unacceptable. Ask yourself, are you okay with how things are right now? Thank you for joining us today, and please enjoy the show.